a spectacle.
He chose money over his conscience.
My opponent, John Fetterman, by his own admission, grew up in luxury and privilege.
Insults stealing the spotlight while voters want a voice on the issues.
I'm thinking about women's rights.
Unity of the people.
I'm looking for civility.
I think public health is most important.
Our leaders are not leaders at all.
Tonight, Lieutenant
Oh
Governor...
my God. Is that Mike?
Is most important.
Our leaders are not leaders at all.
Walter. Now here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go up on that stage and sound like you recently had a stroke. Okay.
Tonight, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz face-to-face for the first and only time. Both men looking to prove they have what it takes to represent the people of Pennsylvania.
Send Dr. Oz back to New Jersey.
I stand for Pennsylvania values, and I'm proud of it.
Live from the ABC 27 studios in Harrisburg, this is the Pennsylvania U.S. Senate debate. Welcome to Debate Night in America. I'm Leland Vittert from News Nation. The stakes tonight could not be higher, not only for the Keystone State, but for the country. Control of the U.S. Senate for either party runs through Pennsylvania. Dennis Owens, WHTM political reporter.
Just met for the first and responses from Mehmet Oz. We have live, experienced captioners in studio to ensure we are as accurate as possible in what's sure to be a fast-paced program.
And just a note, for those of you using closed captioning at home, the captions you see are not tied to the captions that the candidates will see here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. With that, let's get started. Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you.
I like how Fetterman is keeping in with his prior aesthetic by wearing a very ill-fitting suit.
Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and one term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm also having to talk about something called the Oz rule, that if he's on TV...
Jesus Christ, this is going to be unbearable. Oh my God. I actually haven't seen anything. I've just heard. Oh boy. All right.
He's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show. He's done that during his campaign about lying about our record here. And he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush two words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, you are a doctor, a businessman, and television personality. But this is your first run for elected office. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington keeps getting it wrong with extreme positions. I want to bring civility, balance, all the things that you want to see because you've been telling it to me on the campaign trail. And by doing that, we can bring us together in a way that has not been done of late. Democrats, Republicans talking to each other. John Fetterman.
Remember when Trump said that because he was a businessman, he was going to make deals with Congress and he was going to cut through the bipartisanship, and then he ended up exacerbating the bipartisanship to a level that hasn't been seen since the Civil War?
Takes everything to an extreme, and those extreme positions hurt us all.
Or that's not bipartisan
as an example, because it's been such a big problem. Maureen Faulkner accompanied me today to the studio. You know that her husband was a police officer in Philadelphia, was brutally murdered. John Fetterman, during this crime wave, has been trying to get as many murderers convicted and sentenced to life in prison out of jail as possible, including people who are similar to the man who murdered her husband. He does it without the rest of the parole board agreeing. He's doing it without the families on board. These radical positions extend beyond crime to wanting to legalize all drugs, to open the border, to raising our taxes. I want Washington to be civil again. Well, you need it to be less radical. John Fetterman, unfortunately, would bring that.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right, gentlemen, on to the economy. Pennsylvanians are struggling to put food on the table and gas in their cars. Our Next Star Emerson College The Hill poll shows the economy and inflation are the biggest concerns for voters. 39% of them listed that as the top issue. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz. You have blamed President Biden and reckless Democratic spending for the inflation.
I'm voting for Fetterman, but goddamn is this debate hard to watch. Yeah, like, from a perfectly utilitarian perspective, you can easily make an argument for voting for Fetterman, even if Fetterman was dead. Like, I would rather have a corpse in the Senate seat over Oz. That's an easy, like, utilitarian argument to make. Like, that's like a clear one. Obviously that doesn't sell well to the voters, but yeah.
Inflation crisis. But voters would like to hear your specific plan to cut spending. Please explain in 60 seconds.
Well, if you ask the U.S. government, they'll tell you they have 4% waste and fraud. Now, I've traveled over the Commonwealth and spoken to countless people. There was a lady in Beaver County at a county fair who told me with fear in her heart that she wanted to provide food for her son's highly nutritious chicken she wanted. She couldn't afford it anymore. That's a big problem. If we've got 4% waste and fraud, we ought to be able to take care of that. John Fetterman's, however...
What? Is this a fucking joke? You think that the average American is unable to get food into the mouths of their children because of a 4%, like, waste and fraud within, like, internal departmental... What? That's it?
Response continually is to raise taxes. He raised taxes as mayor. He tried to raise taxes as lieutenant governor, 46%. That's a big tax rate. He supported Joe Biden's recent tax rate increase, and he's done that without paying his own taxes 67 times. I'll say that again. He hasn't paid his own taxes 67 times, but he's raising mine and yours. Those are radical positions. They're extreme. They're out of touch with the values of Pennsylvanians. And I can make the difficult decisions, as you do in the operating room as a surgeon. I'll make them cutting our budget as well to make sure we don't have to raise taxes on a population already desperately...
Has Oz ever done surgery? He has? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. No? On puppies? Okay, gotcha. Puppy surgeon.
In pain from the high inflation rate.
Mr. Fetterman, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal. He has specifically said you have not paid your taxes.
Oz got to start as a world-class heart surgeon? Huh.
And that you want to raise taxes on Americans. How do you respond?
Absolutely. The Oz rule, of course, he's lying. It was helping two students 17 years ago to help them, buy their own homes. They didn't pay the bills, and it got paid, and it has never been an issue in any of the campaign before. It was all about nonprofit.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Continuing with you, Mr. Fetterman, your opponent has criticized Democratic spending, as you heard. Has the Biden administration overspent? And if so, where do you think spending should be cut? You have 60 seconds.
No, here's what I think we have to fight about inflation here right now. That's what we need to fight about inflation. Right now, because it's a tax on working families, and Dr. Oz can't possibly understand what that is like. He has 10 gigantic mansions. We must push back against corporate greed. We must make sure that we're also pushing back against price gouging as well, too. We also be able to make more in Pennsylvania, make more in America. When he had a choice to make his merchandise, the Oz label is on, he made it all in China. Who can you believe that can fight against inflation and pushing back against corporate greed for somebody that is choosing working in China versus over American workers?
All right, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal.
Yeah, this is why we need debate bros on the left, okay? Because sometimes it really comes in handy. When did he have this stroke? He had this stroke like a week ago. Like, the stroke just happened. It's like him being nervous. It's like him being nervous plus him being bad at debate plus stroke. In May, I think. Oh, wait, wasn't there another thing that happened a little while ago? Wait. Okay, wait, the stroke was in May. Didn't something just happen a little while ago? Wasn't there some new... What's wrong with what he's saying? Is it just the delivery? The delivery is pretty important here. I can barely understand what the guy is saying. Also, like, he's stammering so much, it's cutting into his... Oh, it was a surgery. That's right. He had a surgery a little while ago.
To his comments that you have been making things in China. Mr. Oz.
I've been trying to talk about policy issues with the people of Pennsylvania. As a doctor, I listen to their ideas and I want to talk about them. When John Fetterman brings up houses, the irony is he didn't pay for his own house. He got it for $1 from his sister. And he hasn't been able to earn a living on his own. He's lived off his parents. So it's not a topic that we should be debating on the stage. We should be talking about crime and inflation, issues that are hurting Pennsylvanians that they're talking about at their kitchen table.
No, That's like, he got his Pennsylvania
All right,
house
Mr. Fetterman.
from his own inlays from a dollar.
Mr.
That's
Fetterman, we have to
typical.
continue on. We'll continue on with a follow-up question to you, Mr. Oz. This one is just for you. You tweeted in August that you will never stop fighting to lower gas prices for Pennsylvanians. Does that include supporting a suspension of the federal gas tax? You have 30 seconds.
I'm supportive of reducing taxes, but we want to be thoughtful about the long-term game plan to get gas taxes down and, frankly, all energy prices down. I have gone around the Commonwealth. I've witnessed people say, I'm not going on vacation this year because I can't afford to pay.
This is sad, man. Yeah, the worst thing is that this is unwinnable for Fetterman because Oz has correctly identified that if he keeps taking snipes at Fetterman, he puts him in a position to respond to stuff that he's literally not, like, rhetorically capable of responding to. Okay, to express how difficult this is, usually I gain viewers while watching debates between political candidates. I'm actually losing a lot of viewers right now because so many people can't bear to watch this, which I fully sympathize with you, but unfortunately, we probably should at least see a bit of it.
To take my trailer to the campground. They can't even get there. What we have to do is ensure that we don't have increased inflation, and the best way to do that is reduce gas prices. John Fetterman has gone after the energy industry, called it a stain on Pennsylvania, and argued we have to ban fracking. That is disconnected from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. We will get to the issue of fracking later on in this discussion, but meantime, turning back to you, Mr. Fetterman, for a follow-up. In an op-ed for the Wilkes-Barre Times Leader, you wrote, quote, "It is time we crack down on the big price gouging corporations that are making record profits while jacking up prices for all of us." How do you plan to do this, sir? You mentioned going after price gouging corporations. How do you plan to do this? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. We have to keep pushing back on that. And he would never make that choice to fight for families here in Pennsylvania. He has never met an oil company that he doesn't swipe right about. He has never been able to stand up for working families all across Pennsylvania. We must push back. Inflation has hurt Americans and Pennsylvania's families, and it has given the oil companies record profits.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
John, just walk out. John, just walk up and punch him. Just football tackle him. It's the only good move here.
Wage in Pennsylvania and at the national level currently sits at $7.25 an hour and has not been increased since 2009. Each of our neighboring states has raised minimum wages. You see them there on your screen, including New Jersey at $13 an hour and West Virginia at $8.75.
$7.25 an hour is insane. That's slavery. I don't fucking care, dude. That's fucking. Lefties say wage slavery, and people are like, "Oh, dude, wage slavery. It's not literally slavery." It's like, no, $7.25 an hour, right? That's insane. That is insane. I don't care.
But Pennsylvania has not followed suit. The first question is for you, Mr. Fetterman. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do, absolutely. I think it's a disgrace at $7.25 an hour. And how can a man, with 10 gigantic mansions, has unwilling to talk about a willing wage for anybody? Imagine a single mom trying with 2 children, trying to raise with them, realizing making $31,000 a year, $15 an hour. I believe every work has dignity, and every paycheck must have dignity in it as well. True, I've always supported a living wage, and we make sure that everyone has economic security.
I have a follow-up for you, Mr. Fetterman. What do you say to small business owners who have told us that if the minimum wage were increased to $15 an hour, it would put them out of business? You have 30 seconds.
Damn tough.
No, we all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full-time, you should be able to live in dignity as well, true. And I believe they haven't have any businesses being you can't have businesses being subsidized by not paying individuals that just simply can't afford to pay their own way.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, turning to you. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not?
No, yeah, he does, Shu. He has good policies. And he's completely correct, right? It's a federal subsidy. Dude, it's bad for my channel to watch this. I'm bleeding viewers. Holy shit. They agree. It's difficult to watch. I don't know what to do. I mean, we have to see some of it, right? I guess, listen, we can treat this as like a health PSA, okay? Do not get a stroke. What causes strokes? I don't know. Bursting of a blood vessel in your brain. That sounds like shit. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking, obesity, and diabetes. Okay, don't get super fat and don't smoke. Okay? Can you guys do that? Because you might get aphasia, which would be bad. Yeah, don't be stressed. Do meditation or something. Don't sit for too long. Yeah, go on walks. Are strokes caused by stress? Yes, because it increases blood pressure. What are the 5 warning signs of a stroke? Numbness or weakness in the face, arm, or leg, confusion or trouble speaking or understanding speech, trouble seeing in one or both eyes, trouble walking, dizziness, problems with balance, severe headache with no cause. Yeah, gotta chill out. You know why, Flips.
You have 60 seconds.
I think market forces have already driven up the minimum wage. I was with a hotel worker actually here in Harrisburg a few months ago, and he was telling me how hard it was to live on the $15 an hour that he was getting paid. John Fetterman shoots too low. We want much more money than that. And there are many ways to achieve that, but John Fetterman thinks the minimum wage is his weekly allowance from his parents. He's not really cognizant of the real challenges of business owners who've got to balance that with employees. Thankfully, we have a solution. And John, you didn't answer the question. You can't put businesses out of commission in order to pay more wages because the wages will go to zero, which is John Fetterman's radical plan if you really follow to conclusion. Here's what I would do. We have one of the richest energy states in the country. I believe if we could unleash the energy beneath our feet here in Pennsylvania, there'd be plenty of money to go around. We'd have increased wages, a more reason for students to take vocational classes to be able to learn trades, which I'm strongly supportive of. We'd also be able to pipe that gas, improve our economy, and reduce inflation. That's a plan that works, and it's humble enough that I can.
It's really frustrating because like as much of a bad guy as he is, Oz is doing the correct thing here. By taking constant petty jabs at Fetterman, he basically guarantees that all of Fetterman's stumbling and stammering is going to be dedicated to addressing those jabs rather than like making it. And the more flustered he gets, like the more he's going to stammer. It's like he's correct here in that the best thing to do is to keep jabbing Fetterman and give him like no room to breathe and establish his own like calm, this is disgusting. I mean, it is. This is also just rhetorically good. If I was in this position from Oz, if like Fetterman was like some fascist candidate or whatever, I'd do the exact same thing. Purely from a rhetorical perspective, it's effective. Is this ableism? No. It wouldn't be ableist to like run fast to beat a person in a race if they're in a wheelchair either. I mean, it's just it's literally a competition between two people, and one of them is at the moment like physiologically incapable of doing a good job. It's similar to how Trump constantly talked over Biden in the debates to make him stutter. Yeah, it's similar to an extent, Oz is killing him like a puppy. You know what the really fucked up thing is, by the way? When Republicans are like, yeah, dude, we should get more people into oil and gas. Do you know how many people work in oil and gas extraction and drilling in the United States? Like, guess. In a country of 350 million. Like 1%, 1/10 of 1%. It's about 300,000 people. 0.1%. So when Oz over here is like, oh, we have so much power under our feet, do you really think you can employ the fucking country on an oil rig? Like, he doesn't actually believe that, What are you going to do to help the common guy? Well, I know something that'll help the benefactors that I have in the oil and gas industry, and that's it, But there's nothing. Like, there's nothing else. The oil drilling, gas extraction, and where are these jobs too? It's like a ton of them are going to be in like Alaska and stuff. How many oil jobs are there in Pennsylvania? 26,000. 26,000 in Pennsylvania's oil and gas industries. Their population is 13 million. But they always do this. They're like, well, how are you going to help poverty? How are you going to deal with unemployment? How are you going to deal with low minimum wage? Oh, yeah, well, let's just get everyone on an oil rig, All we have to do is increase the number of people working in these fields by like 100,000%, and we'll have it.
state broadly.
Thank you. I want to give you, Mr. Fetterman, a 15-second follow-up to what he just said about you.
No, again, it's remarkable. He hasn't really had any answer that he actually had about that in his.
New study: 322,000 Pennsylvania jobs supported by natural gas and oil. Don't you believe this shit? First of all, this is from the American Petroleum Institute. For one, the largest U.S. trade association for the oil and natural gas industry. It claims to represent nearly 600 corporations involved in everything associated with the petroleum industry. Much of its work has been dedicated to the advancement of climate change denial, blocking of climate legislation to defend the interests of its constituent organizations. So that's one, which as far as I'm concerned is enough reason to not pay attention to anything they have to say. Shows that, so you know, like, we contribute so much, we support so many jobs, but what do you mean by support 322,600 jobs? Because, like, depending on your definition of support, that could be very, very downstream. Like, working at a retail outlet could support local jobs in the sense that, like, providing groceries to nearby businesses and people allows, like, cities to develop and stuff, you know? You could fairly say that grocery stores support basically all of the U.S. population, but that's not the same as saying it employs all of it. This study validates the role of the oil and gas industry in growing the U.S. economy and supporting more than 10 million workers from coast to coast. Natural gas and oil touches virtually every facet of our life, from heating our homes to fueling transportation to life-saving medical devices and cosmetics at the drugstore. This study is further proof of the positive impact U.S. resources can have on workers and communities across the nation. Oh, and take a look at this little bit of deceitful. This study, conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers and commissioned by API, showed the natural gas and oil industry supported 10.3 million U.S. jobs in 2015. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average wage paid by the natural gas and oil industry, excluding retail station jobs, was $101,000, which is nearly 90% more than the national average. Notice how initially they say supported 10.3 million jobs, but then they talk about the wage paid by the natural gas and oil industry. The natural gas and oil industry do not pay 10.3 million people. Not even close. Not even a tenth of that. Just don't.
He doesn't want to talk about having somebody having a living wage and having somebody able to survive. Again.
And I want to come back to you now, Mr. Oz, for a quick follow-up. What do you say to those Pennsylvanians that he just spoke of that are trying to survive on $7.25 an hour, which is less than all of our neighbors? You have 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't think you should have to survive on $7.25 an hour. I want the minimum wage up as high as it can go. I want to highlight that I have an agenda for prosperity, unlike John Fetterman. I want us all getting paid a lot more than $15. And I answered your question directly in a way that would preserve business owners, job creators, so they thrive, and we'd have lots more employees entering the workforce and then prospering, getting paid $25, $35, $45 an hour. But we're never going to get there if we don't unleash our energy. And John Fetterman's stubbornness on calling it a stain on Pennsylvania is an insult to those workers.
To be clear, you said you want people making a lot more, but that's not through a federal law of minimum wage. That's through market forces?
Market forces should drive it up anyway, and it's already done that.
Thank you.
You know, you should be able to get paid much more than $15 an hour.
Thank you. Lisa.
All right, thank
So
you.
essentially, like, oh, you should be able to get paid more, and it will be through the market forces of your kind benefactor corporations who historically love paying people lots of money. Corporations love choosing to pay you lots more than the minimum wage. Yeah, this is from Penn Future. So let's get the record straight. The industry employs about 24,000 people and contributes about $500 million to Pennsylvania's economy annually. To put this number in perspective, there are 10 times as many Pennsylvanian jobs in outdoor tourism and recreation, with $29 billion in economic benefits, 11 times as many in agriculture with $135 billion, 3 times as many as energy efficiency. To make matters worse, shale gas jobs are often non-union jobs with modest pay and no health benefits, despite the many occupational hazards. So, like, 24,000 people, $500 million, or 250,000 people and $29 billion in outdoor tourism and recreation. Like, anybody who responds to how are you going to get people's food on the table with, oh, we can expand the fracking industry, is deranged and an operative for the fracking industry. And that's all there is to it.
Gentlemen, another big issue for voters is abortion. Mr. Oz, we will begin with you. You say that you're pro-life, but you do support abortion exceptions in the cases of rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. Aside from those three exceptions, should abortion be banned in America? 60 seconds.
There should not be involvement from the federal government in how states decide their abortion decisions. As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive to put the best.
Yeah, I caught that on Twitter. Who should be deciding your body? Well, women, doctors, and your local political leaders. You can get your local alderman, you know? You can get the constable from the local constabulary, and they'll decide whether or not you get to have an abortion. Thank you. Oh, by the way, quick thing. I took a look. Here's how your state ranks by total clean energy jobs. 92,000 in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has 4 times as many clean energy jobs than it does oil, gas, and coal jobs combined. It's insane. The whole party's just full of frauds. I mean, yeah, but do you get this? Do you understand how insane it is? This would be like somebody being asked, hey, inflation has run rampant and a bunch of people can't afford to pay their bills. And then Oz is like, okay, I totally get that. That's why we need massive gains in the chainsaw juggling industry. We're seeing massive boons in chainsaw juggling vagabonds who play for tips at the local pavilion. And we want more people in that industry. It's very important that we do that. The benefits are good.
Ideas forward so states can decide for themselves. Contrast that with my opponent, John Fetterman, who on this debate stage said that he would demand federally mandated rules for all states they'd have to follow that would allow abortion at 38 weeks on the delivery table, and he would force it to be subsidized by taxpayers across the country no matter what their personal beliefs are. That's radical. That's extreme. That is out of touch with what the average voter in Pennsylvania believes is appropriate. Now, ironically, John Fetterman's been running ads on this topic, dishonest ads. I need to correct the record. They were so bad, they got pulled off television stations. Even on this station, he was running dishonest ads that I had pulled off. I haven't had a single ad pulled down. My ads tell the truth. John Fetterman's are a fiction of his imagination.
All right. I'm going to let Mr. Fetterman respond specifically about the ads being pulled off the air, and then we will return to you, Mr. Oz. Mr. Fetterman.
Yeah, I want to look into the face of every woman in Pennsylvania. You know, if you believe that the choice of your reproductive freedom belongs with Dr. Oz, then you have a choice. But if you believe that the choice for abortion belongs between you and your doctor, that's what I fight for. Roe v. Wade, for me, should be the law. He celebrated when Roe v. Wade went down, and my campaign would fight for Roe v. Wade, and if given the opportunity, to codify it into law.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Going back to you, I want to circle back to something that you said, Mr. Oz. You mentioned the decision to regulate abortion should be something that is left up to the states. Now,
that was so short. Shouldn't he have more time? I guess I don't know. Maybe more time isn't good for him.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has introduced a federal bill to ban abortion after 15 weeks. I know that you've been asked about this question before. If the vote were held today, you were elected senator, you're on the Senate floor, the clerk calls you, there's a roll call vote. Are you a yay or a nay? How would you vote on the Lindsey Graham bill? You have 30 seconds.
Lisa, I don't even need 30 seconds. I'll give you a bigger answer. I am not going to support federal rules that block the ability of states to do what they wish to do. The abortion decision should be left up to states, and specifically when John Fetterman...
You roll with Doug Mastriano.
John, when I'm done, John, you'll have your turn, John.
One moment, Mr. Fetterman. Continue, Mr. Oz.
I've been very clear.
Why would he interject like that? It's hard to get... It's hard to benefit from an interjection, even if you're totally there, you know? If you're not totally there, it just makes it...
On my desire as a physician not to interfere with how states decide. So when John purposely, knowingly misrepresents that to women, he scares them. He's purposely trying to alarm them, and the fear-mongering isn't working. Running tens of millions of dollars of ads claiming that I'm against all abortions when he knows that's not right, claiming that I'm going to be strict with Pennsylvania when he knows that's not honest. I can't be any clearer that I've been on the stage today. John Fetterman, if you just hear that one story today, I'd be really happy, but I know you're not going to, because you're going to go right back to telling the fables that you believe.
Mr. Oz, I want a 15-second clarification. You are saying that you would leave it up to the states, that the federal government does not have a role here. So are you saying you would not vote for the Lindsey Graham bill?
any bill that violates what I said, which is the federal government interfering with the state rule on abortion, I would vote against. What I feel strongly about is that women in Pennsylvania understand what I'm saying and not believe that someone who's taken an extreme position like John Fetterman represents them, because most women do not believe that we should, at a federal level.
He's lying, of course. The whole states' rights thing has always been a like, I want to ban this thing nationally, but we can't yet. So let's just ban it in every state that we can. You know, it's always been that way. It's been that way with marijuana. It's been that way with gay marriage. It's been that way with slavery. It's been that way with the civil rights movement. It's been like Ron Paul was talking about how he doesn't think that like the Civil Rights Act should be federal legislation and how states should get to decide whether or not they want it to be illegal for you to kick a customer out for being black or whatever, or whether or not it should be illegal to say like no blacks allowed when you have an apartment that you're putting up for sale. And this has always been because like at the end of the day they want it everywhere to be possible to do that. You know, they need to start somewhere.
Codify 38 weeks of permission to have an abortion and have taxpayers pay for it.
So a yes or no on the Lindsey Graham bill?
I think I've answered this very, very clearly 3 times, Lisa.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Oz. Turning to you, Mr. Fetterman, you have frequently stated your belief that abortion should be safe and legal. Do you support any limits on when a woman can have an abortion? Please explain in 60 seconds.
You know, what I support on Roe v. Wade. That was the law of the land for 50 years. He celebrated when it fell down, and I would fight to reestablish on Roe v. Wade. That's what I run on. That's what I believe. And I've always believed that the choice belongs women and their doctors. And he believes that the choice should be with him or Republican legislators all across this nation.
All right.
I'm sorry, I must correct that. Once again, he's misrepresented what I've said, but he also said something very dishonest. On this debate stage, he said very specifically, in his primary debate, when he was still debating, that he would support 38 weeks of mandated rules by the federal government that would prevent any state from blocking it. So that's not Roe versus Wade.
That's not true. I support Roe v. Wade. That's the simple.
John, you said specifically you would support a federal rule on 38 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important that John at least acknowledge that he's not honest here, because you said the opposite.
What is going on right now? What the fuck? Oz was able to interject the moment Fetterman stopped talking, but then when Fetterman tries to interject, Oz just keeps talking?
Mr. Oz, we must continue on. Mr. Fetterman, turning to you, we have a follow-up question. Would you support allocating federal funds to transport women who live in states where abortion is banned to states where they can get one, and why? 30 seconds.
I would. I would, because I believe abortion rights is a universal right for all women in America. I believe abortion is health care, and I believe that that is a choice that belongs with each woman and their doctor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's turn to what has become one of the key themes of this race, fitness to serve. For these individual questions, there will be no rebuttals allowed. Mr. Fetterman, we begin with
I wonder why.
you. You suffered, as you mentioned a moment ago, a stroke 4 days before the May primary. Last week, you released this note from your doctor saying you can work full duty in public office, but you have not released your detailed medical records surrounding your stroke. Mr. Fetterman, will you pledge tonight to release those records in the interest of transparency? You have 60 seconds.
No. To me, for transparency is about showing up. I'm here today to have a debate. I have, speeches in front of 3,000 people in Montgomery County, all across Pennsylvania, big crowds. I believe if my doctor believes that I'm fit.
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. I don't agree with Chad on this. I don't think that's a fucked up question at all. He's literally acting like a person who's had cognitive damage from a stroke. I don't think that's an unfair question to ask. Like obviously it sucks. This all sucks, but I don't think that question in and of itself is bad.
To serve, and that's what I believe is appropriate. And now with 2 weeks before the election, I have run a campaign, and I've been very...
How would the public benefit from knowing the private... Because the question is whether he's fit to serve. It's not like this is the first time people have been asking for medical records on political candidates. That's not new, The public does have an interest in the physical and mental well-being of candidates.
Transparent about being very open about the fact we're in use captioning, and I believe that, again, my doctors, the real doctors that I believe in, they all believe that I'm ready to be served.
Follow up, I didn't hear you say you would release your full medical records. Why not? You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my Dr. L believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, you have built a lucrative career around medicine.
See, the reason why he doesn't want to release it is because the doctor almost certainly discouraged him from continuing this. The doctor almost certainly said that it would take a long time to fully recover from the stroke and that he would have symptoms of aphasia. It could even be worse with possible, like, neurological damage, though aphasia seems more likely. He doesn't want to release it because the full records absolutely indict his ability to serve. Now, again, I would literally prefer a corpse over Oz, so I don't care. It doesn't change my vote, but that is, unfortunately, a legitimate matter of public inquiry.
But you've been criticized even by some fellow physicians for promoting, quote, unproven, ill-advised, and at times potentially dangerous treatments. What is your response to that? You have 60 seconds.
One of the great blessings of traveling around Pennsylvania is you run into people who have watched the show. They thank me very much for giving them life-saving advice on chronic issues like high blood pressure or dealing with their anxiety. The show did very well.
Vaush, talk to people who work in hospitals. He has 100% of his cognition. I work with stroke victims regularly. It's insulting to ask question. No. Stop. Don't be dumb about this. First of all, if you work in hospitals, that your opinion on this is irrelevant. This is about what the voters want to hear. Your expertise and professional assessment of his behavior doesn't change the fact that a lot of people are just going to read brain damage from his from the way he speaks. Second of all, you don't know. You don't know. You don't know if there's anything cognitive to it. And third of all, even if it's just a speech issue, that is also a problem. You realize that a politician is a professional speaker, right? Like, not being able to speak well as a politician is the main thing that you need to be doing well, especially as a senator who cannot independently make decisions but can contribute to and advocate for broader discussions on collective decision making. So again, I'm just saying it doesn't look good for him.
Because it provided high quality information that empowered people, which was exactly what I want to do when I'm a senator. Give people the power, let them make decisions for their well-being. Now, John Fetterman's approach to health is a very dangerous one. He believes we should socialize medicine. He embraced this with Bernie Sanders, who he endorsed. The two candidates call themselves the two most progressive people in America. When you have socialized medicine, Dennis, you shut down the ability of people to get access to health care. Doctors stop practicing. There are no medications available. The lines get long. It's a disaster, and it puts people at risk. So I don't believe we should allow socialized medicine, the abolition of all private health care insurance in America, and radical positions like the ones taken by John Fetterman make it too extreme to serve. If we're going to bring balance to Washington, you got to bring people who understand the ramifications. Even Joe Biden called John Fetterman's idea, I'll quote him, preposterous.
Mr. Fetterman, I'm going to let you respond in just a minute, but I have a follow-up for you first, Mr. Oz. Did you or your company make a profit from promoting those products? You have 30 seconds.
I never sold weight loss products as described in those commercials. It's a television show, like this is a television show, so people can run commercials on the shows, and that's a perfectly appropriate and very transparent process. I ruffled a lot of feathers on my show because I told people the truth, and I'm proud of that, and I'll do the exact same thing as a U.S. Senator.
Go ahead.
I, Dr. Oz, will tell the people the truth, like I did with my show. It's a great endorsement there.
But there's no way to defend what John Fetterman has done with socialized medicine. That is a radical departure from what we in America have accepted. A relationship between John, you'll have your turn. John, let me finish.
Respond to that.
There must be a relationship between a doctor and a patient, and that's what I would direct patients to do.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman, he accused you of socialized medicine, supporting socialized medicine. What is your response?
Yeah, again, it's the Oz rule. He's on TV and he's lying. I never supported any of that thing. You know, he keeps talking about Bernie Sanders. You know, 3 years ago, he was on his show and he hugged him and he said, "I love this guy. You know what? Why don't you pretend that you live in Vermont instead of Pennsylvania and run against Bernie Sanders? Because all you can do is talk about Bernie Sanders. Because my truth is that healthcare is a basic fundamental right, and I believe in expanding that, and I believe about fighting for healthcare, the kind of healthcare that saved my life."
Dennis, that was dishonest. He explicitly supported socialized medicine.
We have a lot of topics to get to. I think
that was pretty bad from Fetterman there. I don't know. He shouldn't be focusing on jabbing. He should be focusing on like simple talking points. You know, he could just say like Americans are struggling right now. The system we live in right now does not work. There are better health outcomes in the countries that he calls socialized. I just want to give like the proven, like that kind of thing, like just a simple. I don't think the back and forth jabbing is really like suitable given his condition.
Lisa, you go ahead.
We are going to move on to the next topic, and this has come up earlier, and that is the issue of fracking. Pennsylvania only trails Texas in terms of natural gas production. Both of you have taken shifting positions on the issue of fracking. Mr. Oz, we begin with you. You wrote a column in 2014 calling for no fracking pending health study results. But in a video posted on social media in March, you said, quote, natural gas guarantees high-paying skilled jobs right here in Pennsylvania, so back off Biden, give us freedom to frack. Mr. Oz, please explain that changing position. 60 seconds.
I've been very consistent. Fracking has been demonstrated. It's a very old technology to be safe. It is a lifeline for this Commonwealth to be able to build wealth, similar to what they've been able to achieve in other states. For that reason, I strongly...
Remember, guys, $500 million in wealth and revenue to Pennsylvania compared to $29 billion from outdoor recreation tourism.
Only support fracking, drilling, the piping of that natural gas. In fact, I built a facility even in Philadelphia so we can export it to our allies and help them, the ones that are struggling now in Eastern and Western Europe because of the Ukrainian war. John Fetterman calls fracking a stain on Pennsylvania. He says that he would sign a moratorium to ban its continued use. He's against pipelines. He voted or supported the vote against the Keystone pipeline that ended up shutting it down. He supports Biden's desire to ban fracking on public lands, which are our lands, all of our lands together. This is a extreme position on energy. If we unleashed our energy here in Pennsylvania, it would help everybody. Why John Fetterman is so rigidly stuck on fighting against energy companies is stunning to me, because it's the jobs I want. Tens of thousands of high-paying jobs to help Pennsylvanians.
Thank you, Mr.
It's not. First of all, tens of thousands is nothing. It's no, like that's all he cares about. All he cares about is like, oh, what's your solution to problem X? Oh, have you heard of the fossil fuel industry and everything it's done for Americans? It's nothing. How many unemployed people are there in Pennsylvania? Like probably 100 times as many. Anyway, like the health problems with fracking have been extremely well documented. They just want to kill you. Yeah, it poisons the ground. Poisons the air.
Mr. Oz,
Oz rule.
Mr. Fetterman, 15
I
seconds.
absolutely support fracking. In fact, I live across the street from a steel mill, and they were going to frack to create their own energy in order to make them more competitive. And I support that, living closer to anybody else in Pennsylvania, for fracking to myself. I believe that we need independence with energy, and I believe I've walked that line my entire career. I believe Democrats...
Mr. Fetterman, I do have a specific question, which you can continue on this topic, but you have made two conflicting statements regarding fracking. In a 2018 interview, you said, quote, I don't support fracking at all. I never have. But earlier this month, you told an interviewer, quote, I support fracking. I support the energy independence that we should have here in the United States. So, Mr. Fetterman.
He probably thinks this is like a political concession that he has to make to be viable in the Senate race.
Please explain your changing position. 60 seconds.
I've always supported fracking, and I always believe that independence with our energy is critical, and we can't be held, ransom to somebody like Russia. I've always believed that energy independence is critical, and I've always believed that, and I do support fracking. I've never taken any money from their industry, but I support how critical it is that we produce our own energy and create energy independence.
I must correct the record.
Just a second, Mr. Oz. I do want to clarify something. You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, I don't support fracking at all. So how do you square the two?
I do support fracking, and I support fracking. And
Holy shit! I'm gonna kill myself. Oh my god! Holy shit! Holy fuck! Jesus Christ! Like, it makes my chest hurt. Oh my god! Fuck!
And I do support fracking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetterman.
I'm sorry, Lisa, but there's not just a statement you read. There are multiple. There's pictures of him signing a moratorium.
We have to move on.
But we have to get the fundamentals of the truth out here. John Fetterman over and over again took positions against energy.
We have a lot of topics. You will have a chance to have that in your closing.
One comment then. The energy industry is living in fear of John Fetterman. I want to know why.
Mr. Oz, we want to now turn to public safety. Mr. Fetterman, Republicans have called you dangerously soft on crime. The Pennsylvania State Trooper...
Yeah, Jesus, fuck. Like... Normally, I get some enjoyment out of the, like, here's what I would do, like, here's the... Yeah, I just got a noticeable viewer drop after that. It's people can't watch this. Normally I'd give like rhetoric stuff, but in this case it doesn't really matter, right? Like you can have all the rhetoric in your brain in the world. Like look at Fetterman over there. He knows what he just sounded like. Like look at him. It doesn't really matter. Like it's like being a professional driver and having a tricycle with 2 missing wheels, you know? Like it doesn't yeah. I really wonder what's in that doctor's note or like the full medical records, you know? I hope it's just verbal.
Troopers Association has endorsed Democrat Josh Shapiro for governor. But in this race, it endorsed your Republican opponent, Mr. Oz. What is your response to those endorsements? And what is your response to accusations that you are, quote, dangerously soft on crime? You have 60 seconds.
No. I believe that I run on my record on crime. You know, I ran to be mayor back in 2005 in order to fight gun violence, and that's exactly what I did. And working with the police and working with our community, I was able to stop gun violence for 5.5 years as mayor. Ever accomplished before or since my time as mayor, because I'm the only person on this stage right now that was successful about pushing back against gun violence and being the community more safe. You know, all he's done is just put a plan up on his website in the last 24 hours. He has no experience. He has never made any attempt to try to address crime during his entire career, except showing up for photo ops here in Philadelphia.
I will give you 15 seconds to respond to that, and then I have a question for you.
The Fraternal Order of Police from Braddock, the small town he represented, endorsed me. They supported me because what he's saying is not true. Violence skyrocketed in Braddock. I mean, the town wasn't in a good shape when John got there. It got worse when he was there. People kept leaving. So, of course, you're going to have all kinds of aberrations. But, John, the city was dangerous under your leadership, and that's why the
I want to turn to you now,
me.
Mr. Oz. This past summer, Congress passed the first gun control bill in decades. That would not have happened without the support of the man you are running to replace, Pat Toomey. How would you have voted on that bill, and would you continue Toomey's?
Man, I've thought about it, and I feel like if I could start all over again and I could do political candidacy on my own and I could run, I don't know if I would ever want to talk about crime. The problem is that like the average American, when they hear criminal in their head, they think of like Tuco from Breaking Bad, and they have no sympathy for this person at all. Like they think prisons are just filled to the brim with like monstrous psychotics that are all drug addicts with personality problems. I feel like, yeah, I feel like you always have to run as being strong against crime. You just have to do it like smart, you know? It's kind of like how ACAB and defund the police have not been electoral wins at all. I feel like if you're running, it's like you can't you can't I don't know how you'd frame the police thing, maybe like citizen accountability or something. But like I feel like I feel like for the best thing you could do for the prison thing is to frame it as a kind of austerity, right? Like look at all the money that our state is wasting keeping these people in for just like what, smoking weed? Get them out of here. You know, like that. Like you can't frame it as like a humanitarian thing. It just has to be like we need to stop wasting government money so we can spend more of it on like drones that we give to Israel, but instead of spending it on that, you actually spend it on like, I don't know, schools. I don't know, man.
Legacy as being one of the lead Republicans in Congress on pushing for gun reforms. You have 60 seconds.
I have been supported by Pat Toomey. I've enjoyed working with him. I think he's done a wonderful job. There are parts of that bill that I like a lot. For example, I like the fact that there are background checks that are being strengthened now, so we can make sure that people who should not have guns don't get guns. I also like the fact that there's a lot of money invested for mental health, which is an important part of the equation. I've been to Philadelphia. I've done prayer vigils with black clergy leaders who are desperately trying to save the people in their community. Half the murders in Philadelphia are committed by people under 18. We have got to get mental health services to these people, and it's not happening now. But part of the problem is that we have taken away the ability of police to do their job, and that's on John Fetterman. Because John Fetterman has taken such a harsh position against them. He's undermined them at every level, taken away some of their funding. He's pushed for Krasner, who he admires tremendously, and he's spoken highly of him just this week. He's taken his policies to a new extreme. He's argued that people should be let out of jail without any bail, no matter what they did to get in there. He's argued to release 1/3 of all prisoners. 1/3 of all prisoners out of touch.
Quickly, 15 seconds. Would you have voted for that Pat Toomey supported bill?
Okay. What does Fetterman even want to do with prisoners? What has he said? Why? What? Okay, factcheck.org. Sure, whatever. What has he even said? What's like worst thing that he said on this? Fetterman has said he wants to eliminate mandatory life sentences for people convicted of second-degree murder. Okay. I don't think we should have mandatory life sentences for anything. Like, okay. Oz says Fetterman wants to release a third of all prisoners. Fetterman agreed with the statement, which he attributed to the state's former correctional secretary, that Pennsylvania could release a third of its inmates without compromising public safety. But Fetterman's spokesperson said he does not support releasing 1/3 of all inmates. Fetterman has been said to want to legalize heroin-based. Okay, this is fine. This isn't objectionable.
I would have tried to improve that bill. There are things that I think most of us appreciate. I wasn't there at the time, so I can't speak to what was possible. But I do know there are parts of that bill that do make sense, and the ones I described should be followed. Let's see how it works out.
Okay, thank you. Lisa.
On to our next issue, and that is illegal immigration. It has been a problem in the United States for decades, but it is now spiking. U.S. Customs and Border Protection just released numbers from fiscal year 2022. They show more than 2.7 million total enforcement actions in the U.S. That is the most ever. Mr. Oz, beginning with you. Republican governors in the South have been sending migrants to...
Isn't that because one of the reasons we're having more enforcement actions is just because the Biden administration has been slightly more diligent in processing immigration than Trump has? I don't know how much, like, how many new undocumented immigrants have there been? Like, that's the thing we actually care about, right? Also, we're in Pennsylvania. Why the fuck do we care? Well, this is Pennsylvania. However, they're being they want to be U.S. senators, right? So that'd be a national thing.
Run cities and states without a plan or without any coordination. It is certainly gaining a lot of attention, but is it an effective way to deal with the influx of migrants? You have 60 seconds.
Lisa, we have a catastrophe at the border, and we should not have sanctuary cities as John Fetterman has tried to introduce. But I've been into the parts of Philadelphia and Allentown and Reading, where we have large Latino populations. I understand the challenges of the border. My father was an immigrant. My mother were immigrants. You know, I understand what legal immigration offers us, but the completely porous, open nature of our border, which John Fetterman supports, has created a humanitarian crisis with cartels profiting with human trafficking operations. They take the money, they buy narcotics from China and bring that into our country, and it's making every state a border state. Pennsylvania is already a border state because we're top 3 in the country in fentanyl overdoses. At least I can't go anywhere.
My buddy, my dude, the fentanyl overdoses are coming from inside the house. It is not the Mexicans. Repeat, it is not the Mexicans.
And giving a big event where I don't meet multiple people who say their personal lives have been destroyed because of fentanyl overdoses. Yet John Fetterman not only wants an open border, not only supports sanctuary cities, but he wants to legalize all hard drugs in America, including narcotics. That is, I mean, out of touch with everybody. That radical position was tried in Oregon, which he endorsed, 50% homicide increase rate.
1 moment. I will give a 15-second rebuttal.
What?
50% homicide increase. Everybody. That radical position was tried in Oregon, which he endorsed, 50% homicide increase rate.
Where would that even come from? I don't know about 50%, but oh yeah, homicides are way up in Portland, for sure. Isn't I mean, a lot of that is a product of like the instability that was caused by like the BLM clashes with the police, I think. Because that shit tends to like ruin neighborhoods, and it causes like vacuums of social integration that can cause crime. 1,288 shootings throughout the city last year. Damn. What does this have to do with drugs? It's a COVID thing? Well, yeah. I mean, COVID has caused an increase in violent crime all around the country. 28 homicides per year, but now it's up to 88. Oh, nice, Nanya. They caught me. Well, we've talked about what inner city crime looks like and what to do to stop it before, but politicians are never going to.
1 moment. I will give a 15-second rebuttal.
Yeah, that is, again, the Oz rule. That is just not true. Here, his family's company was levied the largest fine for immigration hiring of immigrant illegals. And I think you should sit this one out about in terms of what a secure border.
All right. We do have a follow-up specifically for you, Mr. Fetterman.
What?
Vice President Kamala Harris says the southern border...
Was that it? Was that all he got? Okay.
Border is secure, yet we are seeing an unprecedented number of migrants crossing. Is the border secure? And if not, what would you do to fix what both parties are calling a crisis? You have 60 seconds, Mr. Fetterman.
You know, I believe that a secure border can be compatible with compassion. I believe we need a comprehensive and bipartisan solution for immigration. That's what I believe. I don't ever recall in the Statue of Liberty did they say, take our tired, huddled masses and put them on a bus and use cheap political stunts about them. I believe we have to develop a comprehensive and bipartisan solution to address our issue here for immigration here in our nation.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. On to the
But
next
John's
issue.
not addressing the elephant in the room, fentanyl.
We have to move on to the next issue. We will be circling back on that.
Turning now to foreign policy,
That was
Mr.
passable.
Fetterman, what do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America? You have 60 seconds.
I believe, is right now is China. I believe China is not our friend, and I believe that we can't be able to push back, and we need to stand against China. And I believe that Dr. Oz has chosen to manufacture all of his merchandise on his name on it in China. Which one of us on this stage is going to stand up against and stand firm against China? And I believe that's our single biggest issue right now, to make sure that we address China and make sure that we know that it's not our friend.
I know that he wants to lean into China here because it's like more topical, but it's just surprising no politician's gonna be like Russia because they keep threatening to fucking nuke us. Because Russia, because they're like dying and they keep threatening to take the rest of the planet out with them. That seems like pretty big something.
Mr. Oz, what do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America? You have 60 seconds.
The fact that our country is not projecting strength. Take, for example, what we're doing with Iran. In order to try to get them to give us a little oil so we can deal with the catastrophe that Russia has caused, we have gone to them and tried to sign a deal that would allow them once again to have the nuclear power to blow up Israel, which they promised they would do. John Fetterman
What?
supports that deal. It doesn't make any sense for America to treat our enemies better than our allies. We have to message with our strong voice and the energy we have in our country that we have control over our future. And the best way for America to establish its dominance is to unleash the energy here in Pennsylvania and across the country. By not doing that, not only do we cause all kinds of problems with local jobs and inflation, but
wow, we're going to pull this back to the oil and gas industry? Really? We're going to pull like our fourth topic? Hey, what's the greatest foreign threat? Hey, have I told you about all the benefits that you get from the fossil fuel industry? Like I've said to you guys before, like fascism, fascism is just like the end result of like corporations wearing politicians like a muppet and using reactionary talking points as a way of distracting people from the fact that they're getting fucked over by corporations. Like that's really it. Like all of the insane bullshit that we've had to hear from Republicans is a direct product of the messaging that they've been told to deliver to distract, oh my goodness, distract their voters from the fact that they're getting shafted by the fucking oil and coal industry. Thank you so much, Aaron Litwiller, for the incredibly kind $100. I really, really appreciate that. Hi, bud. Glad you're back. Yeah, I wish I could have been back, like, far enough in the future that I wouldn't have to watch this debate.
we're destroying our ability to remain energy dominant, and we're not able to become allies like we should be for countries like European nations, which are going to struggle with their coldest winter ever. It's the best way to punch Putin back and to teach China a lesson is American energy.
We're not allies with Western Europe? What? What? We're not allies with Western Europe? Okay.
Supreme. And John Fetterman doesn't like American energy, and they are scared of him because they know they can't trust him. He's proven it.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right, on to our next issue. In our recent Nexstar poll, a hypothetical rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2024 would be a statistical tie in Pennsylvania. 46% of people said they would vote for former President Trump, 45% for President Biden. Mr. Oz, would you support a Trump 2024 run, and why 60 seconds?
I'll support whoever the Republican Party puts up. And I have reached out across the aisle on my campaign because I want to bring balance to Washington. And I've tried to work with Democrats and Republicans and people in the middle, people unsure, and people who forgot, and people who got angry with where their party was headed. I want to bring us together to make this country do what it's always been able to do. Unify, not divide, and address the problems as a surgeon, because in the OR, that's what I do. I just fix the big problem in front of me. John Fetterman, however, cannot go to Washington and work with the other side because he doesn't even get along with his own side. He criticized Joe Biden for not spending enough money and not sidling up close enough to Bernie Sanders. He says he won't work with Joe Manchin. He said, if you like Joe Manchin, don't vote for me. So if you're picking fights with your own party, you're not going to be able to reach across the aisle to the other side. His extreme positions have made him untenable for Republican lawmakers. We need to send someone to Washington who understands the importance of balance, sensible decision-making, and a common sense approach to the challenges that we all face. That's not John Fetterman.
Mr. Oz, Donald Trump has supported you. He has endorsed you. Why won't you fully commit to supporting him in 2024?
Oh, I do. I would support Donald Trump if he decided to run for president.
All right.
But this is bigger than one candidate. This is a much bigger story about how we are going to build a bigger tent to let more Americans feel safe.
Are you concerned about the ongoing legal investigations involving the former president? 30 seconds, sir.
I haven't followed them very carefully. I've been campaigning pretty aggressively. They'll work themselves out. I have tremendous confidence in the American legal system, and I believe law and order will reign supreme. But speaking about that topic, there's one person on this stage who's broken the law, we believe. John Fetterman took a shotgun, chased an unarmed African-American man, and put the gun...
Dude, why are the mods letting him just run away with this? What the fuck? This is a quick aside, and he's like, oh, speaking of crimes...
Apparently, according to that man, to his chest. John, you weren't pulled over by the police. They let you go. You were the mayor at the time. Why haven't you apologized to that unarmed, innocent black man who you put a shotgun to his chest?
Why did the fuck did the mods let him continue with that? That's insane that the mods just let him do that. That guy, first of all, he has apologized. Second of all, that guy endorsed Fetterman. The guy who he pointed the shotgun at endorsed Fetterman. So...
All right, we will allow a 30-second response to that, Mr. Fetterman, specifically what he was saying referring to the incident in Braddock.
I made the opportunity to defend our community as the chief law enforcement officer there. Everybody in Braddock, an overwhelming majority community of black community, all understood what happened. You know, they understood what happened, and everybody agreed that, and nobody believes that it was anything about me making a split-second decision to defend our community as well.
Why not apologize?
Mr. Oz, please. We are still with Mr. Fetterman. Turning to you right now, you support a Biden run. Do you support a Biden run in 2024? Why in 60 seconds?
That's obviously, it's up to his choice whether he, and if he does choose to run, I would absolutely support him. But ultimately, that's ultimately only his choice.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. A follow-up question on this. Our Nexstar poll shows 51% of Pennsylvania voters disapprove of the president's job performance. You have publicly supported many of his policy positions. Are there any that you disagree with? 30 seconds.
Oh, my fucking
No,
God.
I just believe he needs to do more about supporting and fighting about inflation. And I do believe he can do more about that. But at the end of the day, I think Joe Biden is a good family man, and I believe he stands for the union way of life. And I believe that unemployment is already down to the lowest level in the last 50 years.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Let's turn now, gentlemen, to the issue of Social Security. It is only fully funded through 2034. Many Americans are worried that they will never receive their full benefit or have to accept cuts to their benefits.
They're not. There's no fucking way, dude. The empire is falling. There's no fucking way. There's no fucking way Social Security payouts remain full and consistent to the point where we're at retirement age.
Mr. Fetterman, how are you going to make sure it is there for them? You have 60 seconds.
We need to make sure that Dr. Oz and the Republicans believe in cutting Medicare and Social Security. And I believe that they have to support.
Is it wrong to hope the Social Securities is gutted just to see the boomers fucked? My man, the boomers are already dead or dying. They're not fucked. They're already benefiting from it. The funds are going to run out by the time we're the boomers. Will be the boomers.
And expand Social Security. And if somebody sends me to Washington, D.C., I would support and stand and to support Social Security.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oz. Same question to you. How are you going to make sure that Social Security is available for future Americans? You have 60 seconds.
We made a deal with the wonderful seniors of our nation. They worked their hearts out. They paid into a program. No one's going to touch it on my watch except to make sure that it's stronger than it is right now. Social Security, Medicare, which I know a lot about as a doctor, are the fundamental element of security for our seniors, and they deserve to feel like they're valued by our nation. John Fetterman, again, has been running ads and saying that I'm against those. with no proof. I've never said anything different than what I'm saying to you on the stage. But in an effort to fearmonger with people who are older and can be taken advantage of, he'll run these ads. John, it's reprehensible, but it's also reflective of your approach to doing these things. You haven't shown up on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from voters, not once on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from media once on the campaign trail, even just to show off that you could do it. And this is the only debate I could get you to come to talk to me on. And I had to beg on my knees to get you to come. And if it wasn't for Dennis probably getting involved, I don't think it would have happened. Seniors need to know more about your radical left positions, and I need to be able to tell them about my positions. That's what democracy is built on. We exchange ideas, the voters decide. You have hidden from them.
Mr. Oz, I'm going to let you have 15 seconds in a moment, Mr. Fetterman, but can you give us a specific example of what you would do to protect Social Security?
Well, for one, we have to make sure that it adequately increases with the higher inflation rates that we have. So we've got to make that 4% of wasted money.
Dr. Oz pushes Medicare privatization for all. Yeah, well, yeah, the old people are going to be fucking dead in the streets under this. Republicans always have to pretend that they're not going to touch Medicare or Social Security because old people overwhelmingly vote for them. But at the end of the day, like, they just say that, it doesn't actually. What about disabled people? Die. Perish.
That right now is in the budget, redirected appropriately. And one of the first places that I would use it is Social Security and Medicare. And here's the reason.
Fuck you for lingering on Fetterman like this. MSNBC did the same thing this morning. You don't have to linger on this debate. You just aren't helping. Like, I don't see the point of this. With respect, Sharky, like, you realize you're not helping anyone by getting angry at, like, noticing this or looking at. Like, I don't. That is not a level of, like, party compliance that I'm willing to get behind, where something bad happens on our side and it's like, oh, no looking. I would agree if somebody made too big a deal of it, or they overstated or over exaggerated, or if there are bad reactions, but simply acknowledging it, just watching the debate at all, that is not a level of, like, party uniformity that I'm willing to jump into.
One of the worst things we can do to a people is give them bad quality care. And so if you have people who are not going to see a doctor, for example, because they can't afford it, they'll get sicker. Bad medicine means more cost. No one benefits.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman, he said a few things a moment ago. I want to give you 15 seconds to respond to those.
Again, I can't just say one thing other than that Dr. Oz would not support, and he would support cutting Medicare. And that's
John, why do you say that? I've never said that.
It's absolutely a fact. It's a fact. You would have voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, which has dropped our prescription drugs, and he doesn't believe.
Okay, gentlemen, we need to move on. Lisa.
All right, we are moving on to the topic of education. The cost of college tuition is now out of reach for many, many families. Our question is for both of you. We start with Mr. Oz. What is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education long term? You have 1 minute, Mr. Oz.
I've worked in academic medical centers my whole life, so I'm in higher education. And I can tell you the reason that the prices have gone up sixfold in the last 40 years is not because the education quality is better. We've added extra layers of middle-level individuals who don't actually improve the quality education, in my opinion. There's a lot of expenses now incurred by these institutions, and it's not right for the American people to be stuck with the bill. I would push them to offer more electronic classes. Half the kids don't live on campus anyway. John Fetterman's approach, however, is not to deal with the unnecessarily high costs, but just to pay it. So if you want to pay students who didn't pay their loans back, basically what John Fetterman and Joe Biden are arguing for is for plumbers who didn't go to college and couldn't, for a bunch of reasons, afford it, to pay the bills of lawyers who went to graduate school and haven't paid their debt back. I don't think that's right for the American people. We want a fair system. Drop the cost down by pushing for more value for the money we're spending, and then ensure there's a high-quality education that lets people make a living when they graduate.
All right, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal specifically on the issue of student loan debt, which Mr. Oz was referring to. Mr. Fetterman.
Again, Dr. Oz, loves free money when it's a $500,000 tax break on one of his, homes down in a ranch in Florida, and whether it was a $50 tax break, about his farm in Montgomery County. So it's about supporting and helping, young earners, young students to give them a break. I believe that supporting.
All right, let me just ask specifically with the plan to ease student loan debt, the debt forgiveness of $10,000, $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. Do you support that position?
I do absolutely support that. I believe, like I said, it's about helping young learners, be able to get a better start, getting off in the start of their life. And I do believe that, and I believe a majority of Americans support that as well too, helping young learners.
All right, Mr. Fetterman, I want to ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Oz. And what is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education long term? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't think he didn't answer the question whatsoever.
I did answer the question.
Mr. Oz, please give him a moment.
No, you didn't. You didn't. I fundamentally believe that every quality public university education should be very affordable in every state, and I think that needs to be a significant investment. To make sure that anyone be able to afford to go to get a 4-degree university degree, at Penn State or at Pitt or any state schools, to make it much more affordable. And that means requiring a significant investment to make sure and create it affordable that every family can afford.
How exactly, Mr. Fetterman, do you propose doing that to make it more affordable for families?
No, I just making it that much more, it costs too much. And I believe providing the resources to reduce the tuition to allow families to be able to afford it.
All right, we have a follow-up question. This one now is for both of you. This is from News Nation viewer Ann Andrews, a registered nurse from Conneautville near Erie. Ann is a vocational educational instructor for a university and a practicing registered nurse.
Fuck this person. Hate nurses. Hate them. Hate them.
If you were elected, could you please tell me what you would be doing for vocational education in the state of Pennsylvania as well as our nation?
So, Mr. Oz, if elected, what would you do for vocational education? You have 30 seconds.
I've visited vocational schools. I have an answer. But, John, because obviously I wasn't clear enough for you to understand this, there's no question that cutting out the middle levels of higher education and providing digital programs would reduce the cost of education. It's a concrete set of ideas that I'd like to move on. With regard to vocational education, this is really important for us to allow our trade unions to get more closely linked with the vocational schools. I was in a vocational school in Westmoreland, and they have about 1,000 kids. They could take 2,000 kids. Funding those programs is the smartest way to invest our tax dollars. We'll turn out twice as many children who have a job as soon as they graduate. It supports our trade unions who want those kids in their positions anyway. It makes the whole program work.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. Mr. Fetterman, if elected, what would you do for vocational education? You have 30 seconds.
Again, I think it's just the same the way that university 4 degrees as well too. Supporting that and partnering with the unions and making sure that vocation training is affordable, and providing the resources to make sure everyone has the opportunity. Going to college isn't the right choice for every person, but going to those kind of vocational schools, able to create a career to reach a lot of high salary, and again, supporting to reduce those costs are critical too.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Moving now, multiple members of Congress, specifically Democrats, have called for the Supreme Court to be expanded.
God, let this be over. Oh my God, 6 minutes left.
Candidates, we want to know where you stand on this. Mr. Fetterman, should the Supreme Court be expanded? And if so, by how many justices? You have 60 seconds.
I don't believe, I don't stand, and I don't believe in that. I fundamentally believe that even though I don't agree with the ideological breakup of the Supreme Court, I believe it's not about changing the rules. It's about acknowledging where we're at, much the way the Republicans want to try to change the Constitution about how our Supreme Court in Pennsylvania was going to be done, and I don't support that. So I think it's critical that we be consistent, and I do not believe in supporting the Supreme Court.
Mr. Oz, same question to you. Should the Supreme Court be expanded? If so, by how many justices? You have 60 seconds.
I would never touch the makeup of the Supreme Court, and I would advocate to leave it the exact same size it is. But John Fetterman's radical positions have spilled over into what he would do in Washington. One of the first things he has said, and he came back to the campaign trail, is that he wanted to bust the filibuster, which means removing the brakes on the Senate overreacting. That's
true. That is true.
But if you do that, then you would free up the Democrats in the Senate without getting the normal amount of votes to actually expand the Supreme Court, add more states, do things that are detrimental to the well-being of the country. So I think, and your first day back, arguing that we should get rid of the filibuster is a dangerously radical move that would hurt Washington. It's not in our nation's best interest.
Thank you both very much.
All right. At this time, we are ready for our closing statements.
God. Reminder that once the Republicans have a Senate majority, if they get it, they will drop the filibuster like right away.
Each have 90 seconds to convince Pennsylvanians to vote for you on Election Day. Mr. Fetterman, you are first. 90 seconds.
Once again, I would just like to say that my campaign is all about fighting for anyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to get back up again. I'm also fighting for any forgotten community all across Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to be made to get back up. I've made my entire career dedicating to those kinds of pursuits. I started as a GED instructor back in Braddock over 20 years ago because I believe it's about serving Pennsylvania, not about using Pennsylvania for their own end interests as well. To me, careers are revealed by your real underlying values. And my values have always been about fighting for forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, your final thoughts, 90 seconds.
I've loved traveling to the four corners of the beautiful Commonwealth, and I've heard your problems. I'm a surgeon, doctor. I listened to what you say, and I'm trying to help address them today. I've talked to seniors worried their Social Security checks wouldn't go far enough with the raging inflation. I've talked to couples want to make their first down payment on a new house, and they can't afford it anymore because of interest rates. I've talked to families.
You want to cut
petrified.
Social Security.
Mr. Fetterman, it's his turn for his closing.
I've talked to families worried about fentanyl showing up in their mailbox and literally taking the lives of their children.
What? Showing up in their mailbox? You'll having marauding gangs of MS-13 siege engineers who will construct trebuchets outside of Philadelphia, and they'll launch, fentanyl sort of loads directly into the inner city, thus emanating, of course, the psychic fentanyl aura that immediately kills everyone in the vicinity.
Find blue in bed. I've talked to families who won't let their kids go outside because of the crime wave that's been facilitated by left radical policies like the ones John Fetterman has been advocating for. But here's the deal, right? None of this has to happen. This is all very addressable. I'm a surgeon. I'm not a politician. We take big problems, we focus on them, and we fix them. We do it by uniting, by coming together, not dividing. And by doing that, we can get ahead. But I've got one question to challenge you with, just one question. If you take what I'm saying to heart, ask yourself this and others in your family. Are you unhappy with where America's headed? I am. And if you are as well, then I'm the candidate for change. I'm a living embodiment of the American dream. I believe we're the land of opportunity, the land of plenty. I believe we can balance a budget without recklessly spending. I believe we can have an unleashed energy policy that helps us all. I believe that we can have safe city streets and a secure border so legal immigrants can come across, but you shut the fentanyl out. I believe we can give parents choice in where their kids go to school. We can have affordable health care. But most of all, I believe in you. And if you can do this together, and we can, I would ask for your vote on Election Day. God bless you.
We do have one final question.
Fuck, Oz killed it in this debate. Rhetorically, he not only did Fetterman do terribly, but Oz did phenomenally well.
An important issue in Pennsylvania. The eyes of the state are on this debate tonight, but on Sunday they will be on Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia as the state's two NFL teams go head-to-head. Mr. Fetterman, Steelers or Eagles, and why?
Oh, it's a toss-up.
Oh, clearly, always for the Steelers.
Mr. Oz.
I'll be at the game rooting for my Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Gentlemen, thank you both so much. This does conclude our debate. We do want to thank our candidates for being with us, Mr. Fetterman and Mr. Oz, and for all of you at home who have been watching. Thank you so much.
And we want to thank our team at WHTM for hosting us at their studios tonight. Remember, voters on Election Day is just 2 weeks from today on Tuesday, November 8th. Thanks for being with us, and have a...
Well, that was unimaginable suffering. That's cool. We have constructed the Torment Nexus. You simply enter the Torment Nexus, and you experience unimaginable agony, is the thing.